I believe Rachel has hit the magic button. And with that, I will introduce myself. My name is Margaret Farmer, and I am co-chair of the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association. Rachel?
I am Rachel Bloomerth, and I am also co-chair of the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association. Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan Huang. I am vice chair of the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association. Mary?
Hi, I'm Mary Cole, and I'm the secretary of the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association.
Excellent. And also our treasurer is Andrew Pike. Unfortunately, he could not join. He is not available to join us this evening. And if any members of the Planning and Zoning Committee would like to introduce themselves, you are not required to do so. But if any of the Planning and Zoning Committee members would like to introduce themselves, please feel free to take yourself off mute and do so now. Okay, we just have we have one or two really quick announcements. A reminder that we did have a change from our monthly meeting. A number of people attended in November, anticipating a conversation around the Marginal Street shipyard. Unfortunately, the new owners of the shipyard, Ann and Charles Lagasse, were not available this month. They will be coming to our December meeting. Everyone is welcome to attend, and we anticipate a presentation from them and the opportunity to ask questions. So everyone is welcome. In addition, there is going to be an East Boston Community Thanksgiving dinner. It is hosted by the Madaro Family Foundation, and it will be on Thanksgiving Day, which is Thursday, November 25th. It will be 11 to 1 p.m. It will be at the Salesians Boys and Girls Club, and it is takeout only. It is everyone from the community is welcome. This is a wonderful tradition. Unfortunately, they've had to leave the Sacred Heart Church because Sacred Heart Church basement is not handicap accessible, but this is open to everyone, and we and all are welcome. And they're also looking for volunteers for that day for helping prepare food and pack up. So if you're interested in volunteering or participating, I'm sure they would welcome you. Speaking of Sacred Heart Church, their Christmas Bazaar is this Saturday, November 20th. Technically it is 12 to 5, but Pictures with Santa start at 11 a.m. The Sacred Heart Church is located at 303 Paris Street, and this is a really good time. And they are also looking for volunteers. You are welcome to participate, raffles, everything else. And then also my favorite, the white elephant table. So you have something that is valuable, but is not valuable to you. Feel free to drop it off at the white elephant table. They would love it. With those announcements being done, thank you everyone for your patience. We will start off this evening with 270 Sumner Street. This is a first presentation of this particular project. The proposal is to erect an addition and change occupancy to 4 residential units. It is owned by, and I apologize if I say this name correctly, Evandro da Silva. It is represented by attorney Richard Lins, but I believe that we are going to hear a presentation from Lorene Scatino this evening. And the design is by Joy Street Design. So Lorene, please feel free to take it away. Just as a time mark, it is 7:07.
Gotcha. Good evening, everybody. As Margaret mentioned, attorney Lorene Scatino from attorney Richard Linz's office. He is actually over at the Eagle Hill meeting tonight. That meeting was pushed back a week due to Thanksgiving. So I'm covering tonight along with Sharon from Joy Street Design. I don't know if Evandro is on the call, but Evandro da Silva is the owner of the project. Next slide, please. The proposal is to erect an addition and change the occupancy to a 4-unit dwelling. This is a pre-existing 3-unit dwelling. All the units are set to be 3 bedrooms and will range in size from 980 square feet to 1,150 square feet. And this building will be subject to a complete upgrade to life safety, and it's intended for home ownership upon completion. Next slide. This is just the zoning district showing the little cutout. The area in red is the lot we're talking about. This is in a 3F 2000 neighborhood. Next slide. So I'll go through the zoning relief and then I'll turn it over to Sharon to basically go through everything as far as what we're proposing for the addition and what the floor plans will look like. We would need a variance for the use. A 3-unit is allowed. We're requesting a 4-unit building. We would need a variance on side yard. Allowed is 2.5 feet. We're at 1.8 on the left and 3.2 on the right. The front yard would remain the same, no change. Rear yard, we're 22 feet from the deck and 30 feet is typically what's required. So for a difference of 8 feet. For the FAR, we would also need a variance. Pre-existing is already at 1.17. We would be proposing a 2.34. We would need a variance for the height as well. So 35 feet is typically what's allowed, and we're at 45 feet, 8 inches. We would need a variance for open space. Proposed, we would have about 680, give or take, and allowed would be 1,200. And parking, we would only need 1 new space for the 1 new unit. Next slide. Just a little overview of the property we're talking about. It's a little bit hard to see, but we want to give you just the different views. Next slide. Again, next slide. Just the back of the building. Next, yep. You can keep going. This is just the street view. As you can see next to it, 272 Sumner is also under construction. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that building was also approved for a addition. Next slide. And just different views of showing the location of the building we're talking about. Next slide. And this is the rendering. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon.
Hi, thank you, Lorraine. Yeah, so the idea with the renovation and addition to 270 Sumner is to provide larger units and also have a 4th floor addition. Right now, the units are 2-bedroom units that are 550 square feet, which is not even enough square footage, according to the city, to have a 1-bedroom. So they're very tight little units with miniature kitchens. And so really the goal is to make the units much more livable. There actually is a 4th unit that is, I believe, is not permitted in the building. So there are 4 families living there, or were 4 families living there. I don't know if they're still there. So we're really just trying to upgrade the life safety and make the units big enough to be livable. Can you skip to the next slide? Here we go. So right now the building has an addition off of the back, which is only 1 story tall. So we're proposing to bring that up to be 4 stories, although we're not building 4 stories all the way back or all the way forward. Next slide, please. These are the floor plans. And so you can see on the right-hand side there where it has the line, it has existing and an arrow and proposed. So you can see where we're adding on to the back. All of the units are proposed to be 3 bedroom units, and we're pulling in from the side, and then we're adding decks off of the rear of the living space. There is no living space proposed in the basement. Next slide, please. And here you can see that the building begins to step back at the 3rd floor, which you'll see on, I think, on the side elevation. So once you get up to the third floor, the addition just goes back to less than the required setback. And then at the 4th floor, we set back on the front as well. If you can go to the next slide, that's the street view. The owner was looking to do something a little bit more modern, which when you're working with a triple decker is a little bit challenging, but we're looking at doing a really nice entryway, some nice railings, and interesting window trim. Next slide. So here you can see from the side the way the building steps back. The decks go up only to the 3rd floor, and then when you get up to the 4th floor, the top floor steps back from the street. Go to the next slide. Okay, here's the planning process. I think we see the rendering again at the end. Lorraine, do you want to? Oh, there it is. Yeah. So what we're looking at here, we had done a project earlier up at further up Sumner Street, although the number is escaping me, where we had built the parapet up and set the addition back. Unfortunately, in this location, all of the parapets are low. And so we decided we wanted to align our parapet with theirs, but to provide a glass railing so that you don't get that much of a sense of the building being taller on the street. You will see the addition up above, but it is set back. And with that, I'll turn it back to Laureen to talk about the process.
Sure. So right now, this is our very first meeting and the first time that we're bringing this out to the neighborhood at the Planning and Zoning Subcommittee. This project has been filed with Inspectional Services and currently under review. The next steps would be in a butters meeting that would be scheduled by the mayor's office. And then either another planning and zoning meeting or JPNA voting meeting. We put to be determined as that is dictated by the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association and or the mayor's office. We would anticipate requesting variances before the zoning board of appeals sometime in the winter of 2022. I can't believe I'm saying that. And with permit issuance sometime in the winter, spring of 22. I would think closer to the springtime, with construction beginning in 22 with give or take about 10 months of construction. Next slide. And with that, we can take any questions.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the list of abutters that are eligible to speak out loud. So if you're on this list and you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and I will call on you to unmute. So those residents are Andrew Tilden, Tom Christofferson, Caitlin Monahan, Jeff Kimball, JV Carabello, Ben Lieberman, and Frederick Bruneau. So if you have comments and you're on that list, feel free to raise your hand. If not, questions can come direct through the chat. I'll give it a few minutes. So far, nothing. Okay. Comment, it makes no sense to increase the occupancy and density and height in this overly congested area of Sumner Street. To that point, you know, has the owner considered perhaps not doing the 4th story addition?
I think the only way to essentially make these units a little bit more livable and larger, Sharon can speak to this as well, is to do that addition. And to avoid the living space in the basement with the, you know, new floodplains and everything like that, going down into the basement usually isn't an option typically at this point. But I can have Sharon address that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is true, you know, because of the area that going down into the basement is not an option. And I think in terms of increasing the density, you know, right now it is set up and there are presumably 4 families living there. What we're really doing is making more livable units and also units that have more bedrooms, because right now there is a lack of 3-bedroom units in East Boston. People talk about wanting more family-sized units. And these units are so undersized right now that although families might live in them, I really think, you know, they wouldn't live there very comfortably. 550 square feet is not really livable, despite the fact that there are 2 bedrooms in there now.
Another comment, very nice design and nice to see increased size units. Families looking to stay in East Boston are in need of more livable units.
Thank you.
That is all we have.
Okay. In that case, we will move on to our second presentation. I'm sensing a trend here a little bit in some of the people we're going to hear from.
Sorry, can I just ask one more question? One more question just came through real quick.
Please, absolutely.
Is unit 3 a 2-bedroom or it's a 3-bedroom?
Unit 3 and unit 4 are both 3 bedrooms, but they're both designed to be townhouses. And so what you'll see if you look, it takes some studying, but there's 2 bedrooms on one floor, on the lower floor, and then up above there's a 3rd bedroom as well as the living space.
Okay, thank
Flipped
you.
for the 2nd unit.
Thank you. All right, Margaret, that's it.
Okay. And just a reminder, you don't need to wait until a presentation has finished being presented to ask a question. You are welcome to type into the chat and send it on. If it gets answered later on, that's fine. We'll mention like, oh, they happen to answer that question. The answer is blank. But don't feel that you need to wait. We're happy to have them be loaded for the end. The next up is 325 Sumner Street. This is a first presentation. The proposal is to change occupancy of the first level to a real estate office. This is owned by Ryan Kaufman, who I see is present here this evening. It is represented by attorney Richard Linz, but I suspect we are once again going to be hearing from attorney Lorene Scatino, and it is Joy Street Design Project. So Lorene, please feel free to take it away.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Again, attorney Lauren Scatino from Richard Linz's office. Ryan Kaufman is on the Zoom with us today, who's the owner of the property. And next slide, please. This is a pre-existing 2-unit dwelling, and the proposal would be to change the existing use from a 2-family dwelling to a ground level office space and retain the residential unit above. The office would be about 850 square feet, and the office would be intended for a professional use. So something along the lines of real estate, a legal office, something along those lines. And no other changes would be proposed to this other than the fit out of the office space. Next slide. Again, just showing you the section of land we're talking about, and we're still in a 3F 2000 neighborhood. Next slide. We would only be requesting 2 variances on this. One is use, as this is a residential neighborhood, so we would have to request a variance for the office unit. And the other variance that we would need to request is for parking for the office, which would be a 1 space that would be required for the office space. Nothing else would be changing for the building. Next slide. Again, just showing some of the location. You can flip through these quickly. This is the building we're talking about from the street level. Next slide. Just 2 different views of. And this is the concept rendering of what we would anticipate the building to look like after the fit out. And I can have Sharon talk about basically what's going to go on with the fit out.
Okay, thanks, Lorene. So, it's interesting when you look at the existing facade of this building, you can see that there used to be some really large openings, and the chances are that it probably historically had been some sort of retail space or office space. And so the goal of our renovation was really to restore it, to see where the original brick was versus the infill brick, to enlarge the openings and try to make it look more like it probably did when it was originally built. If you go to the next slide, that shows the site plan. We're not proposing any change to the footprint. We're not adding anything. This is just a change of use. Next slide. There you go. So you can see that the existing first floor has a residential unit. Next slide, please. And so this is the proposed renovation. Obviously, once there is an actual tenant signed on, we would have a different layout or a layout for them. This is what's sort of conceptual. Next slide. And then this shows the existing elevations. And next slide, I think, is the next steps. Do you want to talk through that, Lorene?
Sorry, I was muted. Yep. So again, first meeting out, first time we're out in front of the public, Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association Planning and Zoning. We would anticipate in a butters meeting sometime in the near future, as well as the JPNA voting meeting as dictated by the board. We would be requesting variances before the Board of Appeal, probably sometime in the winter of 22, with permit issuance sometime in the winter, spring of 22. This would be a very quick construction. So we were estimating sometime in the spring that this would happen. It would take about 4 months. Next slide. And we can take any questions that there might be on this.
Great. I will read out the list of abutters. It's a short one. Madeline Stasinski, Patty D'Amore, Mary Grace Gravelis Festa. So if any of you would like to speak, feel free to raise your hand or just go ahead and unmute yourself. So one resident. So to clarify, the new designation will be a 1 family in a commercial space, right? Not a 2 family in a commercial space.
Correct. It would be retain the existing top level living, and the bottom level would be the office space.
Okay. How much internal demolition would this require, and would you need a dumpster?
I mean, it would be a quick turnaround for demolition to demo a 1 unit space. There's different ways to do it, and I'm sure Ryan would be happy to work with the neighborhood. Sometimes it requires a dumpster. Sometimes you can do pickup once per day or something. The challenge with this location is going to be, where do you put the debris to begin with? So it's kind of a catch-22, either a dumpster or you're going to have debris, which I don't think the city will allow on the front of the sidewalk. So my guess would be a dumpster makes a little bit more sense, but I would think that the demo would be very, very quick.
One resident comments, it is nice to see creative use of the space that is not looking to become massive. Give it another couple seconds, but that's all we have so far.
Sure.
We're flying tonight. Let's see.
I gotta say, like, is there a pants game on that I don't know about?
No, that's because I'm presenting tonight.
Right?
Just a quick reminder, everybody, that the monthly meeting in December will be December 13th. That is the second Monday of the month. The nice part about being in the beginning of the month is we're not shifted because of holidays. So that meeting will be on.
Will there be a P&Z meeting or no?
So
To be determined.
Yeah, I think we're gonna hold off on making an announcement. I will say, huge asterisk, if there is a planning and zoning meeting next month, it would be the 15th. I do not believe it would be the 22nd, but
Okay.
no formal decision has been made.
Thank you.
No problem. Do you see any other questions in the?
Nope, we can move along.
Okay. Let me scroll down on my handy dandy agenda here. Next up, we have 1 Everett Street. This is the 4th presentation for this particular project. The proposal is to erect a 5-story mixed-use residential building. The developer is Richard Garafo. He is represented this evening by Joseph Hanley and Thomas Miller. And I thought I saw Mr. Hanley a moment ago. You are welcome again.
Sorry.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, take it away.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for having us back. I'm Joe Hanley. I'm the zoning attorney for Avery RTG, Richard Garafo. Tom Miller, who's my associate, is on as well. He was with you in the last meeting. This is our 4th meeting with the neighborhood association, with the subcommittee. And so we've come back with, rather than the entire presentation, because we've been here quite a bit, was to limit our presentation sort of to the issues that were discussed and that were asked of us to come back. Just to refresh everyone, our team, Richard Garafo, who is the owner and the proposed developer, his office is in East Boston, and has spent most of his work and time doing good neighborhood-based residential development, mixed-use development in East Boston. I introduced you to myself. Anthony Pisani and Bill Paquette are our project architects who take us through some of the responses that we have for you. The idea here is to activate a underutilized corner property, the intersection of Orleans and Everett Street and Jeffries Point. Right now, we have a 1-story building that is sort of an outdated structure, commercial structure that has the East Boston CrossFit and the DA's office No displacement here, which we're proud about. East Boston CrossFit is going to have new space should they want it, and as well as the DA. And then what we're looking to do is invest in the public realm, the sidewalk, and the neighborhood at this corner with a design forward program that would provide for nice widened streets and a tree canopy, and then step up to a distinctive design for residential above. Not looking to fill the site with all of building, looking to have a series of design and massing and architectural measures that provide for relief at the ground plane, as well as in the area. So next slide, please. And just takes you to the site again, which I think everyone knows, but again, here's our corner location, and showing the 700-foot walk to the train station, which is also part of the parking discussion, which we're looking to come back and have with the group. Next slide, please. So first issue. So there are really three different areas. The first that we talked about at the last meeting and you asked us to come back with was to address how we park this. There was some concerns about the number of spaces and whether that was adequate for the use and for the repurpose. I will say that East Boston CrossFit is a neighborhood business. It's not necessarily a destination for people to drive to. And again, they will remain for the residential. Obviously, we're introducing new residential units, but we would be the first of this Article 80 small project in East Boston that is privately financed to provide 20% of on-site affordable. The city council and the mayor, I think, has signed or will be signing an ordinance that does not require parking at all for affordable units and for good purpose. This development at 20% would create 6 versus 4. And that's another slide that we look forward to talking about. So 7 on-site parking spaces. And what we would like to do is suggest these as terms that we would put into a binding MOU with the owner, developer, and the neighborhood association, which is something we've worked on in almost every neighborhood in the city. And so of those 7 spaces, one of the spaces will be owned by the development and will be an amenity dedicated to the tenants of the building, which is the use of an EV vehicle share. So one of the things we learned about vehicle share is if it's not convenient to where people are, because we all live our life for these things, it's less likely to be used. But if it's directly on your property and you have a T-pass and you live 700 feet from the T and you work and live in East Boston in the city, you would decide not to have a car, but to take advantage of living at this property because you know that you have access to, let's call it a courtesy shared vehicle when you need to go off-site. And so that would be part of our overall program. We're also sealing a series of curb cuts along Orleans Street, which will help to create and legalize on-street parking for the neighborhood. Yes, people do park there now. You're not supposed to. It may not be enforced, but as the neighborhood expands, there's a real public interest in legalizing, unifying, and improving the on-street parking for you all. And I say that because it would not be available to the tenants of our building, and that would be part of our MOU with you. But it would also be, if you look at the next bullet, second bullet down, it would also be binding with Boston Transportation Department. So we've done this on projects recently. The developer, through the BPDA process, which we would hopefully be in at some point, petitions the Boston Transportation Department, which would forbid any one with an address at 1 Everett Street from getting an East Boston neighborhood parking sticker based on our program. And what that means is that, the concern would be, well, there's not enough parking, so they're going to park on the streets. and that alleviates that concern. And we're also willing to do this because we believe in the program that we're developing and where the future of vehicle ownership is certainly going to be by the time this is built and programmed. And so just to jump over, we're also creating an area for pickup and drop off deliveries and ride share. So that's also something that the neighborhood can take advantage of. But again, it alleviates congestion in the area by making sure that those things don't happen, in the residential condition. And we'll be marketing and leasing the units with the parking sticker prohibition. We worked on this in a project in South Boston that is literally steps from the West Broadway train station, and 55 units, 2 EV shared vehicles. It went through this program, and it becomes a trademark of the building, and especially for renters, you know that you're going to live here, you're going to have limited parking, you're going to have access to the T, you're going to have access to vehicle share, but you're not going to get a neighborhood sticker. So if that's something that interests you, there are plenty other places that you can live and rent in East Boston. Next slide, please. So I'm going to hand this over to Tony Pisani. We talked a little bit about some of the responses on the sidewalk and access to the parking. You'll see in here in the blue in the hash, I'm sorry, in the green, some of the measures that we're looking at. So Tony, you want to take it from here?
Yes, thank you. The building, again, is in the corner of Everett and Orleans. We purposely have cut the corner back that allows for visual access to vehicles coming and going on both sides. Physically, we have stepped the building back 5 feet from the property line all around on Everett as well as Orleans Street. As Joe mentioned, you can see where the parking is in the rear, and also allows for loading dock parking and the drop-off area and pickup area. You can see from the section that with street planting and building overhang, it really opens up the sidewalk completely. For numbers of units, we have basically 30 units, studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms. This is a ground floor plan. As Joe mentioned, the CrossFit, we've designed the space to accommodate CrossFit should they decide to stay there. Indications are that they will. And the office space on Everett Street is currently rented. And again, the tenant in that space has desired to stay. Next.
All right, I'll jump back in here. So one of the last areas, or not one of the last areas, but the third area of input that was discussed at the last meeting for us to return to was tell us about which units you're thinking and how the affordable would work, especially with this 20% in excess of the city's policy. And so this, I've worked on residential housing for a long time in the city, affordability, and this is the first time that we've had the opportunity to work on get this granular this early, having not applied even for Article 80 review. So I think it's actually really good. And so I thank the neighborhood group for pushing us in that direction. But I will say too that we don't get to make all of these decisions. There is a process with the BPDA and fair housing. Clearly, they are going to appreciate and welcome that we're doing more affordable on site than is required. But they will want to see how this all works. So with that, we're coming to you where we've selected what we think the units can and should be. And we've consistent with policy. We've tried to make sure they're not stacked. which means they're not directly above or below each other or directly beside each other. And that's a kind of a principle or requirement for the city policy. And then to be sort of commensurate with the unit types in the building. And the final thing I will say is we are suggesting a variety of income levels, all income restricted for the 20% that reflects both, the current and growing needs in East Boston for workers and families, but also those people that would like to stay and eventually be a family. So this slide is meant to show you, again, we would, the requirement is 13%, and that would be 4 units of the 30. And what we're proposing is 20%, which puts us up to 6 income restricted units. They would be deed restricted for 50 years. And so we went through the medium of all of the units, and here is what sort of we're suggesting, and we put them on floor plans to show you where they would be. So the first would be a 2-bedroom unit. If you go back up, we'll just read through the diagram. So the first being a 2-bedroom unit at 70% of AMI, which is a required level. And those income limits are between 56,000 to 76. And when you get up to 76, that's a household of 4, I believe, Tom. And the average rent.
Household of 3 people.
Household of 3, yeah. So it's important to understand what that is. We are, the average income in East Boston is a little over 60,000 right now. But if you have a family of 3 in a 2-bedroom, right, you could have a nurse and a teacher, and they would make too much, right? If you follow, for that 76,000. Having said that, people do make less as well. So that's the variety that we think you're going to see here. So the next is 2 1-bedroom units, a 1 at that lower level, again at 70%, and qualifying incomes again in the range of that we provided here, and with an average maximum rent of $14.10. Now these are current numbers, as if the project was done today. They get adjusted by HUD every year, and you can go on the BPDA website, but this is what the current AMI requirements are. And then we look at adding one of the 1-bedroom units to try to capture those in the middle income, perhaps, that make too much to qualify for lower income subsidies, but not enough to compete for the rents that are very high throughout the city and in East Boston. So in this instance, you could have a family of 3 making, over 100,000 together, right? A combined income. And in that example, if you had a nurse and a teacher, that's squarely where you are. It's very expensive to live in the city, and then your rent is limited to under $2,500 a month, something that a couple like that could not get on the open market, not even close. So the next is to go back to a lower level again for 2 units, 3 studios, because we have a lot of studios. So 2 of them at 70%, and that provides housing, especially for could be empty nesters, but also young workers who, by the way, could very well be from East Boston and are able to get to rental levels at $1,200 a month. And then we go back to look at one for the middle class, if you will, again. And this could be, this could be someone's mother that's overhoused in East Boston and sells their house and has a certain amount of income that might be higher, but they can't afford to go rent something in their own neighborhood. So from my standpoint, you know, this was a nice task. I don't know if this is where you guys want us to see it. I do have some strong feelings based on actual science and data of what's happening in the city and the neighborhood. And I do think there's a forgotten middle class. Having said that, much of these units are at below the AMI and much less than what the average is in East Boston. And they would be, and even the ones that are more are deed restricted for a period of 50 years. So even as the economy and the neighborhood grows, it's not as if that rent necessarily, it's still indexed, you know, to the HUD levels. So next slide, Tony, why don't you take the good folks here through the units that we selected. And when I say selected, this was in response to the Jeffries Point input and all of this, right? And subject to kind of more review of the BPDA. Tony?
Yeah, the 2-bedroom that Joe mentioned is the slide on the right side and the upper right. And that's an interesting unit because of its exposure. It has exposures to both Orleans and Everett Street. Coming down on the right side of that same floor, you can see that there's a studio. And one thing that we should point out is that all of the rear studios have, all of the rear units have their own individual outside decks. The lower left, again on the second floor, is a large 1-bedroom unit. Going up to the 3rd floor, you can see that there is a large 1-bedroom at the lower portion of the building and a studio in the center on the right side. Next. And then when we get to the 4th floor, you can see that there is a studio. On the upper floor, the setback partial floor on which would be the 5th level, they're basically 3 1-bedroom units with decks. Okay.
Great. One of the things I wanted to have with Tony showing you these floor plans too is it's very important that we create a mixed income community here where everyone's living together, and you'll see that. So we're not coming here saying, oh, we're doing 20% and we're going to stick everyone in the basement, the back of the building. Okay. We're trying to provide equity in that experience throughout the building. And as Anthony said, units that have outdoor space, some in the front, some in the back, some in the lower level, but also some in between. And so, like I said, I want to thank the group for pushing us to get this granular at this stage. And these were the 3 areas that we were asked to come back for. And we're excited to work with you and to begin, which I think is really beneficial, to begin an Article 80 process, having had this much extensive review in advance, but knowing that there is more review to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I am going to read the list of abutters. We have Andrew Tilden, Tom Christofferson, Caitlin Monahan, Jeff Kimball, JV Carabello, Ben Lieberman, and Frederick Bruneau. Caitlin, go ahead. You can unmute.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Joe. So thanks for coming back. I think still my gut reaction is that, 30 units is still a lot for that site. So I still have some qualms about that, but, I was very happy to see that you're going to propose to BTD the parking restriction. I've heard it proposed at these meetings before. I don't think I've ever actually seen a proposal go ahead and actually request it. So that's great. My question for you is procedural. It seems like an important thing to know whether BTD is going to sort of accept the proposal or not before JPNA votes on it, or of course, before it goes before the Planning Board of Appeals. So do you have a sense of timing on when you'll hear back on that?
So yeah, thanks, Caitlin. Yeah, they absolutely will accept this, and they have for us in the past, and especially because we would be part of a, and we work together on an Article 80 process abutting you. There are certain things that go into that board memo, which is a regulatory document for Article 80, if you're approved, that mandate this. And so we've done it now, the project I gave you an example on. I will say that the planners at the VPDA want to see less parking and more of this transit programming, not more. So they will eagerly push for it. But the timing for it would be, we've done all this outreach, we would apply to submit our application for Article 80, which is a booklet, and we would include it in there. And then that becomes part of the public review and the public record. We're then required to do public meeting, hearings and the like. So what I'm suggesting is it would be done through BTD, but it would also be part of a MOU with the neighborhood.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so question from a resident. You mentioned street widening. Can you explain further? It is an incredibly tight street already.
Yeah, Tony, you want to jump on that?
The issue is sidewalk widening rather than street widening. That is that we are at the ground level, our building is set back 5 feet from the property line, which means that the sidewalk therefore is increased by 5 feet on both Everett and Orleans Street.
To create a more thorough furnishing zone, passage zone, right? So we say 5 feet, our property line is already in back of the sidewalk, but we're integrating that into a new complete street sidewalk set, right?
Another way to think of it is that the sidewalk's roughly 12 feet. So it's about 17 feet from face of curve to face of building.
So the virtue of that, right, is you guys walk around your neighborhood. If you have a tight sidewalk with a building that's built right to the property line, even if it's only 2 or 3 stories, you feel like you're cavernous, whereas the idea is to open up the mouth of the corner there and create a much more pedestrian sense that also I think calms traffic, because that stuff is happening there, that it's being activated.
Have a comment from a resident that says, I would be against this project without the parking sticker prohibition. The inclusion of this prohibition makes me a strong supporter of this project. It's great to have more affordable housing opportunities, and the shared EV vehicle is innovative.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is all for now. We'll give it a minute or two just to see if anything else comes through, but that is all I have right now.
Okay. Just a few final reminders and announcements. You can find the presentations that you've seen this evening. If there's something that you wanted to review or see again, you can find copies of these presentations on our website at www.jeffreyspoint.org. This is where we encourage you to interact with developers, but you are welcome to contact them individually if you have concerns. And that information is also available on our website. The minutes from tonight's meeting will be up before next Monday. I'd have to look at the calendar to see exactly what that date is. It does take us a couple of days, and we thank you for your patience, but you are welcome to share this recording or the meeting minutes with others as you feel would be helpful. And we encourage you to do that. We announced it before, but the meeting in December will be December 13th. And again, we will have the Marginal Street Shipyard presenting at that time. When the notes from this meeting this evening are published, it will indicate the next steps for the projects that you have seen this evening. As always, if you have any questions or any concerns that the JPNA can help you with, please feel free to email us at board@jeffreyspoint.org. We thank you very much for joining us this evening. Although there wasn't a Pats game on, I'm sure there were plenty of other things to do. And we appreciate you taking the time and the focus to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
safe.
Joe. You as well. And as this is the last meeting before the holiday, I will wish everyone a happy and merry Thanksgiving. We will stop the recording and everybody have a good night.